Welcome to the Friday Power Lunch, a weekly show amplifying the voices of the Virginia grassroots. Each week, we provide engaging conversations about politics, culture, and women making change. Produced by the unstoppable women of Network Nova, our motto is, when we vote, we win. The Friday Power Lunch is recorded before a live Zoom audience. Follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and show us some love and become a sponsor through Patreon. The Friday Power Lunch. Badass women getting things done.
It is Friday, can you believe it? And today's show, we're really excited about it. We are all about moral revival and legal justice, and we have the credit in the room to our guest today. And there's so much to talk about, so we're so glad you're here. Hope you're feeling good. I have my actually Forward Together t-shirt on because we will be talking about the Poor People's Campaign so we can get everybody in there on June 18th. I'm Katherine White, your host of the weekly Friday Power Lunch, the show bringing you the guests, the issues, and the action all in one big room. And we are amplifying the voice of the grassroots to get things done. And of course, you know, we like to make politics fun. So I hope you're perked up and ready to go. It is June 3rd. I can't believe I'm saying June 3rd. I believe it's June, right, Gene? I know, I hear you over there. Yeah. And, it's June 3rd. And welcome. I see some Lake Frederick Dems in. I see Margaret Morrison in. Phyllis over there and Braddock, great to see you. And I don't know if I know Audrey Van Denberg, welcome. And of course, Jenny Kitchen all the way from rural Virginia. It's so great to see. And oh, Gary Green from California. Good, there you are. I see you. I feel like I'm on Romper Room, but we're so happy. I'm so happy you're all here. We are excited, as you can tell, because our theme today is about moral revival. You know, as Democrats, we have to embrace that idea of being the party of moral. It's not a bad word. It's really our values speak so strongly about what we care about. So we do need to embrace that word because we need to make things right and overcome injustice. So let's move forward together because we are not going one step back. Are you right? All right. So I am so excited to kick off with our guest today. And the Reverend Dr. Liz THEOHARIS is not here right now. She is on another call, so she'll be with us later. But we do have the awesome legal pundit of the Friday Power Lunch with us, all things legal, GENE ROSSI. How are you, Gene?
I'm doing great. I'm talking to you.
You are talking to me. I'm so excited to talk to you. I mean, there's so much going on and we're going to talk later, but you know, I just can't believe every day in the sense of the justice world, you're on top of it. And you have been witness to the Johnny Depp, Amber Heard thing. So we will do some celebrity gossip today, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're glad you're here. I know you're a busy guy and I'm sure you have to be in court, but we're glad you're here. So thank you for being here as usual. It's awesome. So let's get to some housekeeping and rules of the road. As we know, we like to have a lot of fun in the room, use the chat to communicate and make sure that we know you're here. If you want to put in what you're going to do in action this weekend, if you can keep up with all the events and you have your orange on today for it is the whole month of June is Pride and the whole month of June for orange is going to be a gun, you know, our stand against gun violence for Moms Demand Action. So, but in the chat, use that politely. If not, the bouncer over there in the orange shirt, we'll kick you out, Stair. She's good at that. Also, you know, our favorite part is the after chat. So make sure you budget your time to stay after, because we do love to hear from you and we love to hear about what you're doing and working on so we can work together. And lastly, I'll have to say, you know, it's always a little shout out for this team in the room. I'm always thankful for them every day, working hard on the Power Lunch. Become a patron. And if you maybe in the room, if you got your mug, go ahead and show it. But we want to show you somebody that got their mug, the best messenger or one of Frederico Cura. Hi, Frederico.
I got my mug from Power Friday Lunch. So here we go. I am so excited. So let's see. Woo! There it is. It's got some orange, my favorite color. So let's take a look. Wow. Woohoo!
Oh, I love it. So if you got your mug, show it, use it. We love it. And it's one way that you can do. Becoming a patron is to support our show. It helps us do the work we do. And so we're so thankful for all of you in the room. I see if you have a Zoom background, you do get one delivered to you every week. So that is awesome. All right. So I'd like to get to it with Fennell Norton, our show messenger. Hi, Fennell.
Hello there. Oh,
Good.
how are you?
You have your orange on.
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah, don't be all shy on me. I know you have a lot to say, but let me open up with this. I know we have I'll do some local news. I think that everybody in this room has been watching closely this week. We have two big things for Virginia Democrats. We saw new leadership elected on Wednesday, made the papers for the Virginia Assembly or the House Caucus. We saw Don Scott from Portsmouth, which I don't know Don Scott, but guess what? He's going to be coming on the Friday Power Lunch, June 24th. So we'll get to meet who this new minority leader is. And also Dan Helmer will be the new vice chair of outreach. So that was some big local news. And also the budget. The budget just dropped, was passed. I guess they still have to do that whole signing thing, but we saw some good news in that with some, investments into education in some areas. We did see some sneaky business behind the scenes that Jennifer McClellan, senator, was talking about, and Delegate Marcus, little backroom deal making that you kind of only see in Washington, but we see that Youngkin is bringing some of that into Virginia with going behind and criminalizing marijuana. And Senator McClellan talked about that did not involve even the Black Caucus in this discussion. And, she did make a big fuss about that, which is great. So, the good news is we see the grocery tax will be eliminated at 1.5%. But then I guess localities will be able to also keep some of that fundraising or tax locally if they want it. So that's my kind of local news. And then I want to ask you, did you watch President Biden on gun violence the other night? Did you tune in?
I did. I did. And actually, I was driving, so I got to hear it all without any interruption. And I really thought it was fantastic. I thought he did a really, really good job because, if you listen to my TikToks, I don't let anybody poo-poo on my president. So that's really big and important to me. He's a home team, and we have to cheer for the home team. And I'll tell you something else that I've been thinking about a lot, and that's why I'm so excited about your guest today with the Reverend. And that is, this is me, I've decided this all on my own. I've decided that fighting for democracy is nonpartisan. And the reason why I think that's so important is because we have lots of community organizations and fraternities and sororities in many cases who say, well, we're nonpartisan. And right. What I think is when you're fighting for democracy, it is nonpartisan. And so we don't care what group it is, whether Democrat or Republican, you ought to be standing up for freedom and wherever that is and whatever you must do to make sure that it's delivered. So my message today is that for all of us to think about the organizations that we belong to, and it's time to pick a side so that we can all enjoy democracy, which is what we all deserve.
Yeah, you said it right. And, it was a strong message. I watched it, I'm sure, in the room, what people's reactions, interested if you want to put it in the chat, the big title, enough. And I think we hope we hear this all the time where we see these horrible things, tragedies happen, and we say, okay, well, here comes the mailman. So the dogs are barking. The mail's on time. Hey, how about that?
Yeah.
We see these things happen, and then just like Ukraine was in the front of our minds, and it's almost so difficult to keep all of this in the front.
Yeah.
But we must. Right?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that was really important, two things that really struck me was last week that the president of Ukraine, of all the things that are happening in Ukraine, he took a moment to say, how sorry he was about what happened in Uvalde. And I think about that, and I think about all the folks that I've seen on TV from other parties who haven't really demonstrated any kind of compassion whatsoever. I don't know how you can sit in those spaces and not show some pain on your face to demonstrate. And I also saw the other day, remember when it was the whole thing about the mask and the mothers were all up in arms and I'm going to do this because my kid's not going to wear a mask. I haven't heard from them either. And so my point is that it's time for everybody to stand up. Like the president said, enough is enough. So I don't care what organization you belong to. I don't care whether you think that you're nonpartisan or not. It is time to stand up for all of these things that we think are so important that are hitting us in the face right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's this really opportunity to really show who's on the side of caring about people, about children, about even schools. I mean, the thing when you talk to teachers, they're like, all of a sudden, teachers are under attack for all these things before with the education, and now they're expected to carry guns. It's just like, okay, that seems so ridiculous. And your comment about the global thing, yeah, the world's paying attention, and America looks like it's just crazy. And right now, we definitely have to keep fighting. If we think we're going to be leading the way forward on these issues, we're starting to look like we are unstable. So thank you, Fennell. I'm so glad you're with us in the room, and you're coming up to the Women's Summit.
Yes, I am. I will be there early so that I can help do whatever it is that you need. And I'm really working really hard to bring some folks with me. And that's what I would encourage everyone to do, is do your very best to bring someone along. So if we're planning to have whatever the number is, it will be double because we all feel inspired. And that is a call to action. Yeah. Bring someone with you.
Bring someone with you, as we say. Bring a friend. Bring a friend. That's the most important thing. And I'm looking forward to the TikTok. We were trying to convince Heidi to come up with her caravan of children. So this will be fun. So thank you, Fennell. Awesome. And I'm so excited for the next segment because it's been way too long for our grassroots update with the fabulous, fun Louisa Borowski, who's been traveling and then back here. How are you, Louisa? We totally missed you.
I am good. I was in Colombia and then I was working, but it is great to be back and it's great to be plugged back into the grassroots. You covered half of what I was going to say, Katherine, about going on in Virginia. But in addition to the budget, which I put 2 links to articles in the chat if you want to read more about it, I think it's really important that we watch to see if Youngkin is going to do any line item vetoes. It is something that, governors have done in the past, but there's been so much work on compromise on this budget that I think if he goes in and does something to take away some of the legislation that or pieces of the budget we thought were important, I think it's really important we message about it ASAP. So really worth watching it. And we need to hold him accountable. It is not okay for the governor to just go out and decide on his own that, say, the 1% local part of the grocery tax is now something that we're going to get rid of just because he wants to, or other things. So please pay attention to that. The other piece of news from the Virginia Democratic Party is that they are looking for a new executive director. And so this is going to be a leadership change at the top. This is typical. Every couple of years, we tend to get a new executive director of the party. The good news is often we get someone who has been active in Virginia, has a field experience. Andrew Whitley, who will be stepping down, that was his background, and then Chris Bowling before him, similar. So we'll see what happens there. I'm speaking with Andrew this coming week just to talk about transition and the role of the grassroots. And so hopefully we'll be able to continue to work in a positive way with the party going forward. And then the last thing I want to share are just some of these great upcoming events that we have this month, because there's so much that's going on in the grassroots. So the first is obviously Wear Orange Weekend. This Saturday, there's going to be a big event in Loudoun County. I'll put the information in the chat. Also, this Sunday is our monthly Virginia Grassroots Coalition meeting. If you would like to meet the person running for CD1 and the person running for CD5, please come to our meeting. Those will be our guest speakers. Additionally, we're going to be doing some debriefing on what people are hearing at the doors and what their canvassing experience has been so far this cycle. Additionally, I'm going to be putting some canvassing opportunities into the chat. There are opportunities to canvass for Spanberger, as well as a big grassroots road trip down to Virginia Beach, July 16 and 17 to canvass for Luria. Please, please consider joining us in July. We need to jumpstart the work down in Virginia Beach, get them fired up. So if you can come down, it'll be fun. We'll have a group dinner. There's going to be hopefully some supporter housing so that if you can't afford to stay in a hotel, there are going to be some options down there as well. And the last thing I wanted to note was that we are going to have a big event in Loudoun for Pride Month. And it is going to be right after the Women's Summit on the 26th. And they are so excited. This is going to be the first time that there's a big Pride event in Loudoun County, and they're expecting it to be one of the biggest in Northern Virginia ever. So if you want to be part of the fun, I'm going to put the information in the chat as well. So lots of fun ways to get reconnected. I think June is a particularly important time for us to rebuild our relationships and get energized, because then we're going to be on full steam ahead for for the election season.
Yeah, it really is. It feels like a lot of exciting things going on, like you said. And I do think on the June 26th, the Loudoun Pride, I think Chris Matthews, who will be playing at the Women's Summit the day before at the Nova Community College, will be playing at that event, I'm pretty sure. So how cool is that? We just are a family overlapping, right? So that's
going to be great. Yeah, they have multiple musicians. It's really going to be a huge party, and which is exactly what it should be, right? And so,
right. No, I agree. And
Summit weekend.
I was thinking also of, when you're talking about the budget, and I don't know if I mentioned, but Marcus Simon is going to be trying to come June 17th to talk to this room about the budget and more about that process and some insights about what's going on. So that will be cool for that. So thank you for those updates. And I think going down, it's always fun to go down to Virginia Beach. We always have a lot of fun eating and drinking together and then hitting the ground. And then we'll follow up with that in September 16th with the part of the last stop of the Women's Summit. We will be hitting the doors again and working for Elaine. So I love that we're just doing so much, because that's what we need to do. We cannot wait. We can't wait.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Katherine. And somebody did ask for information on how to sign up for the Women's Summit in the chat. So
did they
add that in? That would be fantastic.
That would be, and the team will put that in there. So yeah, definitely. Thank you, Louisa. And I can't wait to unpack Columbia with you and what you're doing. You're just awesome. And I'm looking forward to seeing you Sunday. Make sure we're on the agenda for the Women's Summit. I don't have to call you now that I've told you here. So
exactly. No problem.
All right. Okay. Awesome. That is just awesome. And I do see that our special guest is here, the Reverend Dr. Liz THEOHARIS. She's author. She's co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign and director of the Kairos Center for Religions, Rights, and Social Justice at the Union Theological Seminary. It is such an honor to have you here. Just great to see you in person.
No, it's so good to be with you, and thanks so much for welcoming me today.
Yeah, I mean, this is in Virginia. You've been here a lot, I know, working on the pipeline and out in what's it, Union? I want to call it Union Hall.
Union Hill, I think.
Thank you. Union Hill, and out there, you and Reverend Barber. And so I want the room to get to know you first. Some people may be new to new to your work. Tell us first about you, how you got started in this, your background, and then also we can then talk about the Kairos Center.
Great. Yeah. So again, it's so great to be with everybody. My name is Reverend Dr. Liz THEOHARIS, and I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a part of a movement family. I was raised in the church and always saw that my faith had to be directly connected to doing the work of justice in the world, in the here and now. I have been doing very grassroots anti-poverty organizing for about 30 years of my life. I connected up with the welfare rights movement and the homeless union organizing movement. It was from poor and low income people back in the 1990s that I learned about, more deeply at least, about the Poor People's Campaign of 1968, and really have spent the last 3 decades trying to look at what it would look like for us to build a Poor People's Campaign for today. I connected up with Reverend Dr. Barber, the co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign in 2013, but it wasn't until 2017 and 2018 as we approached that 50th anniversary of the Poor People's Campaign that Dr. King and the Welfare Rights Movement and Appalachian families had called for and had pulled off, that we actually launched the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. And we launched it with the largest and most expansive wave of nonviolent civil disobedience in the 21st century. And, it's really a kind of culmination of a bunch of the work I've been doing for decades as a faith leader, as an activist, as a mom, as someone who has experienced homelessness and low wages myself.
No, I think, this is wonderful that you've been, I've seen, the Poor People's Campaign we work with over the years, with all the different marches, and because it's, again, addressing these millions of impoverished people in our country and low wages. These are so, just so pressing and important, and especially when you go through the recession, you see the housing issue, and then now we have the pandemic. And these workers and these low wage workers should not be forgotten, as we say, and we have to put that forward. I'm just interested in your positioning on this when you call for this strong theological call for ending systemic poverty. And then you talk about this thing, I like to hear more about it, but ending poverty in our minds. Can you talk a little bit about that philosophy and what you mean by that?
Well, I mean, we live in the richest country in human history. And yet almost half of the population is poor or one small emergency away from absolute economic ruin. This is not a small problem for some people over there. This is at the heart and center of our impoverished democracy. And again, we have the resources to do something about this, right? We throw out more food in this country than it takes not just to feed everyone that's hungry in this country, but around the world. We have about 5 abandoned houses for every homeless person. And yet there are, somewhere between 10 and 12 million people. And that was before the pandemic. And now tens of millions more are at the risk of eviction, have been thrown into homelessness and unsecure housing. But again, it does not have to be. And so we often have a saying in the Poor People's Campaign that there is no scarcity of resources. There's only a scarcity of political will and moral consciousness to actually do what needs to get done. And so that's where this idea of ending poverty in our minds comes from, right? If we're not living in material scarcity, then what is it that our theology justifies poverty as inevitable? What is it that our politicians argue that it's just because people are not working hard enough or having too many kids, or all the different stereotypes and lies, to be honest, about why people aren't poor and who is poor. And so I believe, and this Poor People's Campaign and the thousands of poor and low-income people who are organizing in communities all across the country believe that we have to believe and see both the material resources, but then also the kinds of policies that are at hand. I mean, again, if we look at something like the child tax credit, we had 4 million kids raised above that poverty line, right, just with one program alone. And then our politicians' decision to not extend that sent those 4 million kids over the course of a month back under that poverty line. So there's a heart and a head problem going on here, right? That we don't do what we know it's going to take to actually come to terms with this issue. And so, anyways,
I agree, because when that happened, and when President Biden was actually also was responsible, these were both sides of the parties looking at this, did that. I was shocked, because I was like, this was so amazingly meaningful. And it was just to know that the poverty, lifting all those children out of poverty, and then just to just kind of switch that off. And also then you see when there is something like the Ukraine war or different things that come up or some military stuff, all of a sudden we have access to billions of dollars.
That's right. I mean, there's never been a war that people didn't rush to fund. And what war does is, it's as Dr. King said, it's a cruel manipulation of the poor, and it's an enemy of the poor, right? I mean, the war. We don't need it. And there's never been a bailout of Wall Street that we haven't, rushed to fund. But when poor and low income folks, need programs that lift from the bottom, and in fact, don't just lift poor and low income families up, but actually make it so that everybody in society rises. When low wage workers are demanding living wages.
Right.
When folks are talking about actually doing what's necessary to save this earth and everything living in and on it, then
Right.
somehow we get all this pushback. Then somehow is when we say, oh, we don't have the resources, we can't do that. But that's a lie. That's just a lie. And we have to name it as such. And then we have to organize the power to be able to not let that lie withstand, right? Dr.
Right.
King has this beautiful saying where he says, power for poor people will really mean having the capacity, the togetherness, the assertiveness, and the aggressiveness to make those in power say yes when they
Yes.
may be desirous of saying no. Well, we're too used to no. But so that's why we're coming together and organizing together and mobilizing and
Right.
building the power to make the policies that are needed and are possible actually implemented.
Yeah, no, I mean, when you even think about what's happening, how globally the Ukraine war will affect poverty and hunger, we already see it now, right?
Yeah.
That those investments that money going over there, and then the amount of need that's going to come out, we see that globally. And so I'd like to get more into, when we talk about the moral revival, I know when we opened up, we talk a lot about, our values, especially Democratic Party, let's just say, we feel like our values really try to get at the caring of people and then putting in a policy to really help people and really make government work for them. So what we talk about a lot in the movement is like shifting that moral narrative, that there seems to be, for us to be comfortable and understand what that looks like. Can you talk about like shifting that moral narrative, that we embrace that? And what does that, look like to you when we talk about it?
Well, I mean, just the fact that before COVID even hit, we had gotten comfortable. We'd gotten used to the fact that 250,000 people are dying from poverty in the richest country to ever exist, right? What that takes is surely economic and political programs, but it takes a revival of our deepest moral and constitutional values and traditions. I mean, how can it be? If we have the wherewithal, if we have the resources to change all of this, and we're not, if we're living under the biggest attack on our voting rights since the Reconstruction, right after the Civil War, and yet we have not been able to expand and protect voting rights, this calls for a revival. This calls for a reconstruction, right? A transformation from the bottom up.
Can you talk about that? Because that's one of my questions. What is the third Reconstruction agenda when you talk about that? So people understand what you're referring to.
Yeah, we're talking about fully addressing low wages and poverty. We're talking about, having climate resilient economy. We're talking about, redirecting a war economy and a poverty draft towards a peace economy that lifts up, human dignity and fairness and equality. And so we have this third Reconstruction. Now, the first Reconstruction was right after the Civil War, a powerful moment in our nation's history that was then cut short by extremists who could not handle a multiracial democracy, could not handle formerly enslaved and poor white sharecroppers coming together and building these beautiful constitutions that talked about the right to bear the fruit of our own labor, right? and then had to be crushed. And then we had a second Reconstruction in the Black freedom struggles and the civil rights movement, where we were, talking about human rights and civil rights. But that was also cut short, including when Dr. King was assassinated. And so we're saying that now, and this is framing, the co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign, Reverend Dr. William J. Barber II, has really put out a third Reconstruction. And again, this agenda has 14 different points and principles to it. It includes housing and living wages. It includes immigrant rights and Native and Indigenous sovereignty. It includes, water rights and clean air and it starts with, the attack on our democracy and our voting rights. Yes. Both by this political movement of white Christian nationalists and all the structures and everything around that again is allowing for politicians to be smuggled in, not elected because
I
under
like
voter
that word,
suppression,
smuggled in.
Yeah, who then deny healthcare, deny living wages, attack our trans youth, take away the rights of women for healthcare and to make decisions that impact our lives and our families, and so all of that connects to this attacks or these attacks on our democracy right now. And so this third Reconstruction is about reconstructing society from the bottom up. We have this saying, when you lift from the bottom, everybody rises, right? And when we invest, when we cut our military budget, when we have a fair taxation system, these things can mean that everybody's lives can be improved.
Yes, and so that it's a big list, and I was really just so motivated by reading all that, and it really speaks to me about the importance of organizing. And so how are you now organizing to make sure we build this power? If you want to talk about the Poor People's Campaign, I know you guys are this is what we need to do, organize to vote, because we can't pass all that you listed unless we have that power, right?
That's right. And, now 1/3 of the US electorate are poor and low income people. And yet we go through election cycle after election cycle, not really hearing the needs and priorities of poor and low income people. And then when they are brought up, when what's on the ticket is folks that are saying we'll expand healthcare and we'll raise the minimum wage to a living wage, guess what? Then people turn out in big numbers. And in the 2020 election in battleground states, it wasn't just 1/3 of the people were poor and low income. 40-50% of those that voted were poor and low income voters. And so what we're doing is we're kind of enlarging and enlivening this electorate of poor and low income people. And we're doing this by organizing these coordinating committees, and we're organized in more than 40 states across the country. We are also, as many people here I think are familiar, planning a generationally transformative assembly. It's called the Mass Poor People's Assembly and Low Wage Workers Assembly and Moral March on Washington into the polls. It's going to be this June 18th. We're just a couple weeks away. A massive demonstration of poor and low income people in DC, right there on Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah, and in fact, that's a good, Robbin, if you want to get that video that we have.
A powerful movement is rising across America.
From the Mississippi Delta to the Apache stronghold.
From the homeless encampments of Washington State to the coal fields of Appalachia of West Virginia.
We are the 140 million poor and low-wealth people in this country, and we are building the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival.
On June 18th, we will hold a mass Poor People's and Low Wage Workers Assembly and Moral March on Washington to put a face and a voice on poverty and low wages in this country.
This is a watershed moment for justice and democracy in America.
Because the question should have never been, how much will it cost to address poverty? The real question is, how much is it costing us not to?
Join us in DC on June 18th.
Visit poorpeoplescampaign.org.
I got chills with that. I'm bringing my teammate in to speak to you. She had a wonderful, a good question that I'd love for her to pose. Go ahead, Fennell.
Well, so I am from a rural community, and we've never seen the Poor People's Campaign here before. And so what I'm trying to figure out is how do we start to bring more of a voice to some of the communities that may not be the ones that you guys get to, that you get to see. And I think the other question that I have is, when I think about these really big moments, like the 60s, we had so many pastors from so many different faiths who participated in the movement to make something happen. And I'm not feeling that kind of surge and that kind of engagement. And so how do we do that? How do we help them understand that perhaps the worry that they have about their 501c, that for them to sort of choose how to work with this issue is bigger than what other fears they might have?
No, both of these are so important. I mean, we are very serious in the Poor People's Campaign about organizing, as our friends in West Virginia and Kentucky say, from the hood to the holler, right? And so we have folks from Lowndes County, Alabama, and Aberdeen, Washington, these little small rural areas, and we have folks, from New York City and San Francisco. And so if there isn't a Poor People's Campaign coordinating committee member, in your town, maybe you got to join that Poor People's Campaign coordinating committee, and try to make sure that we're connecting up these struggles, because that's what it's going to take. We can't just be organized in the big cities. We can't just be organized in the small towns. We can't just be organized in the rural areas and the suburban areas and the exurban areas. We got to be organized everywhere. And we deeply believe that we got to organize and unite people across geography, across race, across ethnicity, across religion, across gender, across sexuality, across all the lines that have historically divided us. Because there is actually not a census district in this country, even the richest ones, that don't have poor and low income people living there. And what we saw in COVID, and we still are seeing, because we're not out of it yet, but is that the death and the sickness from COVID in rural towns, in big cities, is showing us that poor people are who's been hurt the most. 2 to 5 times the number of people who are poor and low income and live in poor communities have died from richer people. And so anyways, it just shows that whether it's a small town that has its rural hospital that's been closed, or whether it's a big city that doesn't have a healthcare system that really can adequately help our people, that we have to organize all of these places. I think when it comes to this question of our faith leaders, so on the one hand, the good news is that there are folks that are getting involved, and there are folks that have seen, when Dr. King was organizing the Poor People's Campaign back in 67 and 68, there wasn't one national faith body or denomination that actually really was supportive. After he was assassinated, some folks came on. The Quakers were actually on board before that, but really across the board, his own denomination, turned against him. But when we launched the Poor People's Campaign, and now as we've been, 4 or 5 years in existence, there are more than 20 national faith bodies that represent millions and millions of people who have signed on. And that isn't just that they say we like you, but they participate in nonviolent direct action. They show up for events and actions. They preach a different and bring to their congregations a different message. But I think it is really true that for 50 years now, we've had this rise of Christian nationalism and this distortion of what it is to be, what the moral values really are. And we've heard more that Jesus is a card-carrying member of the NRA than that if you cut the word poverty out and pour out of the Bible, it falls apart, right? I mean, again, as my co-chair says, people have been so loud about the things that the Bible says so little, but so quiet about the things that are actually right at the core of not just Christianity, not just Judaism, not just Islam, but so many of our world's faith traditions. And so I think part of why we're talking about a call for a moral revival is actually about trying to get some of those faith communities and faith leaders, on board, saying, there is a crisis happening, and it's a crisis for humanity, and it's impacting everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. That is wonderful. And so maybe I'm the person who gets to do a Poor People's Campaign here. But I have one other thought. I saw this on the news, and I remember a long time ago, Senator Manchin said, and I don't know that people paid attention to it, but he said, the people in West Virginia know how to live within their means. And that's when we were talking about Build Back Better and getting resources. And then I recently saw a poll that says that since he stood against Build Back Better, he's gone up 17 percentage points. And so those are the kinds of things that I just I grapple with, because I just kept thinking to myself, no one is listening. He said that people know how to live within their means, and their means are not enough for them to have the kind of life that you thrive in. So I think this is probably where we need to go. And you also said 140 million. So if we can, because we do know that folks who have less money tend to vote less. So I think there's all kinds of ways that we can try to participate. And this is probably the route to go, we're not trying to tell people what they need. We just all want to have a fair shot.
Yeah, to me, one of the things that's really important, especially if we're going to talk about Joe Manchin, is that he speaks on behalf of West Virginia, but he does not speak for the people of West Virginia. 80% of West Virginians supported expanding and protecting voting rights. And in fact, some of these voter suppression laws have gone into effect and are going into effect in West Virginia. And his refusal to protect and expand voting rights is against his own people, and the will of people. 80% of West Virginians, and this is actually nonpartisan. This is Republicans, Democrats, Independents, supported extending the child tax credit. And so I think he's able to put out there that he's doing this on behalf of people. But it's because at this point we're not hearing enough from the people that are supposedly his constituents, who are very clear. Like when we've done these marches and rallies, and we've been invited in by the West Virginia Poor People's Campaign, we hear a very different message than what Joe Manchin is putting out. And so I think it's helpful for us to know that, and to know that there are people all across the country, including West Virginia, who actually wildly support these kinds of programs, but he's standing in the way because he started listening to the corporations in the Chamber of Commerce instead of the people.
Right, and that seems to go across, like the voices across the United States. When we look at all this policy, 80% of people support, gun safety laws, women's reproductive rights. So right now our voices are trapped. And like you said about smuggling these pieces, the voting rights issue is really big, and it just starts to we need to make sure we hit the polls big, because we need to make this change. So I just want to say, everybody in this room, to get into the June 18th in DC, it will be a great morning off with this just wonderful Poor People's Campaign. And we will put that in the chat too, so people can sign up and get involved. So I want to say thank you from our heart for the work you do. And I know for the time you spent with us, I think everybody in the room really super enjoyed it. So thank you so much, Reverend.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Much for being here. Oh my gosh. Well, I think we all feel kind of morally uplifted. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. This was fantastic. I was looking forward to it because it really is so vitally important. And I think all the time when you add new voices, then maybe there's something we can do to close the knowing doing gap. We know what we need to do. We just got to do it. So now we get to participate too.
And look, it's building those coalitions that matter. And so that's super. And what we want to do right now is kind of build up some excitement with being determined with our all-in festival determination and also action. So Robbin, so give some people in the room some idea about what are we talking about when we talk about the Women's Summit. So this year, the 6th Annual Women's Summit, all in to win. And we're going to kick off in June, on June 24th at the Rowan Tree. We're going to be doing All In for Education. We have teacher Jessica Berg, who's been testifying before Congress on what's happening in classrooms. We'll have some board of supervisors there, and it will be an awesome way just to have fun, kick back. And then because on Saturday, we'll be in Annandale at the Annandale Nova campus at the Ernst Center, and we have a lineup, and I'm so excited. Heather Booth will be there, and she will get you ready to get organized to win. Abigail Spanberger, Jennifer Wexton will have the candidates running and other seats. So you may get to see them virtually on Sunday, but you'll get to see them in person and get to really meet them and talk to them. Herb Jones will be there. Josh Thornburg from rural, and then Tanisha Devon, I'm saying her name right, I'm really not reading it, will be there as well. But we will have a lot of the elected there, a lot of the grassroots organizers there. But the best part, we will have Chris Matthews and Heather May, because we're going to do weaving songs around the issues. It's going to be different because that's what we like to do, get people organized, get people kind of excited to be all in. And then we have our online.
What the hell?
What the hell, right, Gene? We're going to have our online community that will, once you get a ticket, you get access to that. And that way we will build our power within this private community that we hope to launch then later bigger across Virginia, so we can make sure our work is on one platform where we communicate, share stuff, do our Zoom out of. So a lot of great online programming as well. So that's my little selling segment. All right. Gene, Dancing Machine, Disco Fever, Gene, I'd like to introduce you again. You are all things legal. You're our favorite pundit, long history, 3 decades of criminal and civil litigation in the U.S. Department of Justice. And you just really are the man to ask about what is going on. So let's get it started. Do you want to do some dancing first? You do disco fever? I know. Yeah, you got it, disco. We were playing that in the back room. I love it. So let's get two of the big parts of what we really want to hear about.
Yeah.
You know, this January 6th committee, we've heard now some things are going to be happening about it. Let's review where we are with the January 6th committee and these investigations and what is happening.
Well, first off, when I said what the heck, I clicked the wrong button. I wasn't mad at you.
I know you weren't.
I only have a few minutes, so I'm going to be very brief. At 11:57 a.m., CNN just posted an article. Talk about perfect timing. Peter Navarro, the author of the so-called Green Bay sweep. Dr. Liz must know Green Bay Packers. But Navarro was indicted this morning on contempt charges for failure to show up and to produce documents to the January 6th committee. So that's a congressional subpoena that he basically blew off, arguing privileges. He has been indicted, criminally charged, okay? He is probably going to be indicted for failure to comply with a grand jury subpoena that was served on him recently for documents. And here's why he's holding back. He has probably a treasure trove of emails, text messages, other types of documents that show that Donald Trump was intrinsically involved in all the things that happened that led to the violence that occurred on January 6th at the Capitol. I have said from day one that Donald Trump should have been indicted. He should have been indicted a year ago for insurrection and or sedition as an aider and abettor, if not a conspirator. And that may happen. It may not, but it's moving in the right direction. And this indictment of Peter Navarro is a bad omen for the people who worked in the Trump White House and for Donald Trump.
Oh, well, that's good news for us. So I know I was watching that yesterday. Here he comes on all these shows, does all this talking, and I'm hoping this will be really good for justice. So what do you think about these public hearings? What are they going to?
Right. Here's what the hearings are going. Here's what the hearings are going to do. You're going to have hearings, and then you're going to have a final report. Now, I would like to believe that the hearings are going to be like Watergate in 1973. I don't think it'll be that explosive, but you're going to find that there was a lot of coordination, a lot of collusion among the White House crowd, including Donald Trump, and the organizers of the Stop the Steal rally, and that Trump's campaign apparatus was fueling it. There is no mistake as to why Donald Trump gave his speech right in front of the White House and said, you have to fight like hell. He knew what they were going to do. Steve Bannon, the day before, told us that January 6th, it was going to be holy hell. By the way, Steve Bannon's been indicted too.
Good.
So I think things are going to start opening up. They're not moving as fast as I would like.
I know.
We're moving.
Well, Merrick Garland.
Yes. Okay. But I'll be brief. Merrick Garland has as much integrity as any attorney general we've ever had. He has as much brilliance as any attorney general that we've ever had. Here's his Achilles heel. He too often acts like a judge, and he doesn't act like a prosecutor.
Right.
A little too indecisive. He's got to be more aggressive. That's my only complaint. But he's apolitical. He's not like Barr. He's the antithesis of Barr. So I compliment him for that.
But in these times, I think when so much is on the line, it feels like that he's a little bit too cautious, you know. But I understand that this case has to be solid. I know you have to go, and I'm sorry about that. I would have waited for the Women's Summit to the end. But one more thing. Depp and Amber Heard. You covered the Amber Heard trial what was that like, and what are your takeaways?
I was at the court. I was in front of the courthouse probably 6 times doing law and crime, and it was actually very exciting. I am not surprised by the jury's verdict. Johnny Depp's legal team was a little bit better than the one for Amber Heard. Johnny Depp's testimony was a little bit better than Amber Heard. She had some moments during her testimony that just weren't good. And I'm not surprised by the verdict. Johnny Depp basically almost won it all. They sort of threw Amber Heard a crumb,
Right.
but it was a Pyrrhic victory.
Okay, so one last question. Did you get Johnny Depp's autograph for me?
No, I will though.
Will you?
No. I got a picture with an alpaca. That's the closest I got to Johnny Depp.
Okay, just asking. I have Johnny Cash over here. I just need a Johnny Depp, and then this is good. Johnny Cash, Johnny Depp. But thank you, Gene. You know what? You're going to come back because we always have fun with you, and you always like to give us the highlight. Any last takeaways before?
Well, I see one of your chats. It's a sad day for domestic victims of domestic violence. Yeah. I want to say this.
Right.
The Johnny Depp trial versus Amber Heard, that will have a chilling effect in the short term. But that case, if you follow the evidence and follow the lack of forensics and some of her comments, it's not as dire as supporters of domestic violence want to believe. That was a unique case. It was a circus. It was an absolute
circus. Yes,
it was a total circus.
I tried not to follow it. I really hardly looked at it, truthfully. I mean, for Fairfax to have the celebrity of it, but I know that this is what I've been reading also, like you said, the chilling effect on this. And looking at the case, even in some of it, it is just so much celebrity, and it's, here we had it in Virginia. So.
And the last comment is, I can't believe that the jury in some way was not affected by the crowd outside when they left the courthouse, and also when they got home. I can't believe they didn't see the social media and all that. I predict something's going to come out about that.
Yeah, it is really, like it's like having the parade, as we say, come to Virginia. But we appreciate you here, Gene, in the room to tell us all about it. We know Elaine Luria is on that committee, and we need to get her reelected. She's going to have a tough slog, but it is so important that we make sure we bring people, higher up level people, to justice. So we thank you for your work, and we hope to have you back again, Gene. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, Gene, the legal machine, the dancing machine. All right, everybody, it's that time again. I am so excited. Hope you'll stay around for the after chat. But before I do, I want to remind you of a few things. I know you all love to get the recap. So you will get the recap of this show with all the links so you can get into action on all these different events we're doing. And also, if you want to show some love, be a Patreon, go ahead and sign up. That's what helps support our work. We love it. Make sure you get your ticket for the Women's Summit. And if you want to volunteer on site, we love help and we need it. We're very excited if you want to join us on that level. And remember to follow us on all our social media channels. I want to thank you to our great show team, Robbin Warner, show wizard, Stair, Calhoun, ambassador of buzz, Fennell Norton, show messenger, and Heidi Dragneff, social media diva. And welcome also, if you didn't meet her before, but Kara's here, our new intern, and our Zoom crew, Laura Martinez. Thank you, Laura. It's always awesome to see you every week. And that is about it. Oh, Julie Galdo, the happy grandma, and Sally Reynolds are our concierge to make sure that our content is wonderful. So I hope you stay for the after chat. Keep busy this weekend. Lots of great events to go to, and love you all, and big kisses. And we'll see you next Friday, but stay for the after chat. Let's wrap it, Robbin.